Most people fear the dark. It's been painted as evil, dangerous, or spiritually regressive. But what if I told you that your descent into the dark isn't a fall from grace, it's a sacred initiation? What if the shift from light to dark isn't a punishment, but an invitation? You see, we've been conditioned to believe that a high vibration always looks like peace, positivity, love, and light. But real spiritual growth doesn't move in a straight line upward. It spirals, it descends, it breaks what no longer serves, and it leads us into the places we've been running from. If you're experiencing a shift from light to dark, it may feel like you're regressing. But I want to tell you something that might change your life forever. This is not regression. This is sacred transformation. This is the universe trusting you with deeper power. There comes a moment on every spiritual path where the light becomes too narrow. It begins to feel artificial, even suffocating. You've meditated, you've visualized, you've raised your vibration, and yet something inside you feels hollow. That's not failure. That's the beginning of the shift. The first sign that your vibration is moving from light to dark is the sudden loss of interest in what used to inspire you spiritually. You may feel disconnected from practices that once brought you peace. You might stop resonating with the love and light communities. You might even feel angry at the idea of always having to stay positive. That's because your soul is no longer satisfied with surface-level light. It craves depth. And to access that depth, you must descend into the shadow. Not as a victim, but as a warrior. Not to conquer it, but to integrate it. This descent is not random. It's meticulously designed by your higher self. You're being initiated into a vibration that can hold more truth, more power, and more paradox. Here's the paradox. The deeper you go into the dark, the more light you carry. Because light is not the absence of darkness, it's the integration of it. The second sign of this shift is emotional volatility. You may feel angry, sad, envious, even numb. Old traumas might resurface. Deep fears come crawling back. You might think, I thought I healed this. But healing is never linear. What you're feeling isn't weakness, it's spiritual detox. You're purging the parts of you that were suppressed under the illusion of constant positivity. Now I want to ask you something that may pierce deeper than most questions you've ever heard. When was the last time you sat with your darkness, not to fix it, but to understand it? Because the third sign of this sacred shift is the craving for solitude and silence, not to escape, but to listen. You'll start pulling away from noise, from crowds, from superficial conversations. Your energy becomes too sensitive for anything less than truth. You begin to see through the masks people wear, but more importantly, you begin to see through your own. The roles, the identities, even your spiritual ego all start to crumble. You're not becoming less, you're becoming real.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
At this point, the people in your life may not understand what's happening to you. You may be judged or misunderstood. That's the fourth sign, the loss of resonance with your previous environment. You might feel like you're losing friends, your community, even your purpose. But this is not destruction, it's recalibration. Your vibration is tuning into a deeper frequency, one that doesn't match the superficial frequencies you once aligned with. It's painful, yes, but it's also empowering, because you're learning to source your energy from within, not from the validation of others. You're not becoming dark, you're becoming sovereign. And here's where it gets mystical. The fifth sign is the emergence of ancient memories or archetypes. You might start dreaming of caves, snakes, crows, or ancient temples. You may feel drawn to the underworld myths, Inanna, Kali, Hades, and Anubis. These are not random. These energies are part of your soul's deeper curriculum. They are guides, not demons. They come to initiate, not to destroy. And if you have the courage to engage with them not through fear, but through reverence, you unlock gifts that only the dark can give: inner strength, radical honesty, intuitive clarity, and sacred rage. The sixth sign is the collapse of your spiritual identity. You may no longer feel like a light worker, a healer, or even spiritual at all. This is terrifying because it feels like losing yourself. But what you're actually losing is the image of yourself, the costume. And in its place, something raw and real emerges. A vibration that is not concerned with appearances, but with essence. This essence doesn't need to be seen, liked, or followed. It simply is. And its power is magnetic, because it resonates with truth, not performance. The final sign, and perhaps the most misunderstood, is the desire to embrace your shadow with love. You stop trying to banish it. You stop seeing it as the enemy. You begin to understand that your shadow contains your creativity, your sensuality, your boundaries, your voice. The parts of you that were shamed, silenced, or exiled begin to return. And you welcome them. Not to let them run wild, but to let them come home. This is advanced spiritual alchemy. To hold both your light and your dark without needing one to dominate the other. To stand in the middle and say, I am both. That's the sign of a truly awakened being. So now I ask you, what if the darkness you fear is actually the part of you that holds your greatest gifts? What if your descent is not a detour, but the path itself? This shift from light to dark is not the end of your spiritual journey, it's the moment you begin to embody it. You are being trusted with the full spectrum of your soul, and that is not a curse, that is the highest honor. We've been taught that the shadow is something to fight, to banish, to cleanse. But what if I told you that the shadow is not trying to destroy you, it's trying to graduate you? What if the part of you you've been running from is actually the part that holds the key to your evolution? When your vibration shifts from light to dark, it's not because you've become less enlightened. It's because you're being invited into a higher form of embodiment. And the shadow is not your obstacle, it's your initiation. It's the fire you must walk through to remember who you really are, not just who you were taught to be. There's a reason the shadow shows up at this point in your journey. It doesn't appear to those who are still asleep. It comes for the ones who are ready. Ready to hold more truth, more paradox, more power. The shadow is your raw, unpolished energy. It's all the parts of you that were too intense, too wild, too real for the box you were forced into. And now those parts are rising not to ruin your life, but to return your life to you. The pain you feel isn't a sign of failure, it's the stretching of your soul as it reclaims its full range. When you begin to face your shadow, something sacred happens. You start to see every wound not as trauma to avoid, but as a portal to enter. Your jealousy becomes an invitation to claim your desire. Your anger becomes a compass for your boundaries. Your grief becomes a ritual of release. And your fear? It becomes the raw material for courage. This is what most spiritual teachings avoid because it's not pretty. It's not marketable, but it's real. And that's where the gold is, not in transcending your humanity, but in descending into it with full presence. Ask yourself this: what part of me have I been most afraid to look at? That's where your power is hiding. That part of you you've rejected, it's not a mistake. It's a gift wrapped in pain. And if you can love it, hold it, and integrate it, you will gain access to a level of energy that cannot be faked. That's what true power is, not dominance, not control, but the ability to be fully present with all of yourself. No masks, no filters, just truth. As this vibration shift deepens, you'll notice something strange. You become more magnetic, not because you're trying, but because people can feel that you've gone somewhere they haven't dared to go. They feel your depth, your sincerity, your groundedness. You stop speaking from concepts and start speaking from experience. You don't just talk about transformation, you are the transformation. Your presence becomes a transmission. A living reminder that it's safe to be whole, even if wholeness includes darkness. But here's the paradox. The more you embrace your shadow, the less it controls you. The things you were afraid would consume you: rage, lust, grief, insecurity begin to soften. They stop screaming for attention because you're finally listening. And in that listening, they start to transform. Shadow becomes gift. Pain becomes wisdom. Chaos becomes creativity. You're not erasing the dark, you're alchemizing it. This is the moment of initiation. Not when you conquer your shadow, but when you bow to it. When you say, "Thank you for showing me what I've denied." When you stop seeing the dark as a threat and start seeing it as a teacher. That's when you begin to embody spiritual maturity. Not the kind that floats above the world, but the kind that walks right into its mess and brings light through it. So I ask you now, from the deepest part of your being, what if everything you've been running from is actually the gateway to your liberation? What if facing your darkness is not the opposite of spirituality, but the very heart of it? There comes a moment in the shift from light to dark when everything seems to crumble. Your beliefs, your routines, your relationships, your very sense of identity, they all begin to unravel. It feels like you're falling apart, doesn't it? But what if I told you that this collapse is not chaos, it's clarity being born? What if the disintegration of who you thought you were is the sacred clearing of space for who you really are? We fear losing control because we've been taught that control equals safety. But in truth, control is the cage, and what you're experiencing now is the key turning in the lock. You're not falling apart. You're falling into yourself. This is one of the most misunderstood stages of spiritual evolution. When the light starts to dim and the shadows rise, we panic. We think we've lost our way. But the opposite is true. You're actually entering the most honest, raw, and unfiltered version of your path. The illusion that you could manage, predict, or perfect your spiritual journey is being stripped away. And underneath that illusion is something far more powerful: surrender. Not passive resignation, but active trust. The kind of trust that says, even this is part of my evolution. The kind of trust that breathes through the storm rather than trying to stop the rain. Let's be honest. We've all tried to control our growth. We journal, meditate, set intentions, visualize, and try to manifest our way into clarity. But the truth is, the deepest transformations are the ones we never planned. They come when life pulls the rug out from under us. When the relationship ends, the job disappears, the identity cracks open. And in that empty space, we meet something terrifying and sacred: the unknown. It's in the unknown that real power lies. Because when you have nothing to hold on to, you finally begin to realize that you are the thing you've been searching for. Have you noticed how the more you try to fix yourself, the more exhausted you become? That's because fixing is rooted in the belief that something is wrong with you. But during this phase, you're being shown that the real work isn't fixing, it's letting go. Letting go of who you were pretending to be, of who you thought you had to be, of who others needed you to be. And in that letting go, something ancient stirs, something real. You don't become less, you become free. This is also the stage where people will misunderstand you the most. They'll say you've changed, that you're being distant, moody, unpredictable. But what they don't realize is that you're not becoming someone else, you're becoming yourself without the mask. And not everyone is ready for that version of you. That's okay. Let them go. Your path is sacred, even if it looks messy, even if it doesn't make sense to others. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be true. So I ask you now, not from a place of fear, but from a place of reverence. What are you still trying to control that's actually asking to be released? Can you feel it? That tightening in your chest, that anxiety in your gut, it's the resistance to what wants to unfold. And what wants to unfold is not chaos. It's truth, but you can't receive truth while clinging to illusion. You have to make space. And making space often feels like losing everything. But what if losing everything is the beginning of finding yourself? What if the falling apart is actually falling into your body, into your breath, into the moment? No plans, no goals, just presence. That presence is your anchor. That's what holds you when everything else slips away. And in that stillness, you'll begin to notice something miraculous. You're still here. Beneath the storm, beneath the grief, beneath the letting go, you remain. And not just remain, but rise. Not in the way you used to rise, climbing higher with effort, but rising like a tide, naturally, effortlessly, because you've surrendered to the flow. This is what the dark teaches us, that we are not who we thought we were, that our strength is not in holding it all together, but in having the courage to let it fall apart. That true power is not control, it's capacity. The capacity to hold pain, to hold joy, to hold paradox without needing to escape. That's the vibration you're shifting into. And once you feel that, once you embody that, you become unshakable. Not because you're invincible, but because you've made peace with vulnerability. Everything you've been through, every unraveling, every moment of silence that felt like abandonment, every dark night you walked without a map was never meant to destroy you. It was preparing you. The darkness wasn't the end of your spiritual path. It was the doorway to your true beginning. Because the kind of light that comes after the dark is not the same light you started with. It's not soft, performative, or pretty. It doesn't ask for applause. It doesn't sparkle for attention. It radiates from the core of your being, forged through fire, anchored in truth. This is the light born from descent, not escape. And it's the light the world needs. You see, most people are still trying to ascend while avoiding their own humanity. They chase higher vibrations as if they can bypass the mess, the grief, the old wounds. But you, if you've made it this far, you know better. You've learned that real light doesn't come from floating above your pain. It comes from entering it, sitting with it, not trying to fix it, not trying to label it low vibe, but simply being with it. And in that radical presence, the pain begins to shift. It may not vanish, but it no longer owns you. You become the space that holds all of it: joy, grief, confusion, bliss. That's the real shift. That's the higher vibration. Paradoxically, it lives in the dark. This is why the darkness is a gift. Not because it's pleasant, but because it's honest. It strips away every illusion you've clung to. It shows you who you are when nothing external can validate or define you. And in that emptiness, in that vast unknown, you discover something unshakable. Not an identity, not a role, but a presence, a silent, powerful awareness that says, I am still here. That presence is your real light, and it doesn't need to be seen to shine. It simply is. Have you felt that yet? That quiet inner knowing that no matter how much falls away, you remain. That no matter how dark it gets, there's still a pulse of life, a flicker of clarity, a whisper of resilience that doesn't come from your mind, it comes from your soul. That's not imagination. That's the real you. The you beyond conditioning. The you beyond roles. The you that was never broken, just buried. And now, through this sacred shift, you are unearthing it. It's here, in the dark, that you begin to see with new eyes. You're no longer hypnotized by appearances. You can now feel the energy behind words, the intention behind actions, the truth beneath the surface. Your intuition sharpens, your heart expands, and your compassion deepens, not just for others but for yourself. Because now you understand what it took to get here. You know the weight of silence. You've tasted the loneliness of transformation, and that humility becomes your medicine. You stop trying to save people. You start simply being with them. You stop trying to shine your light on everyone. You start inviting them to find their own. This is what it means to be truly luminous. Not to be the brightest in the room, but to be the deepest. To walk into any space not with answers, but with presence. A presence that says, it's okay to not have it all figured out. I've been there too. And I'm still here. That's the light that heals. That's the light that lasts. So I leave you with this. What if the dark wasn't sent to end you, but to make you whole? What if the light you've been chasing was always waiting for you on the other side of your own shadow? You're not who you were when this began. You've shifted. You've shed. You've stripped away what was never truly yours. And what remains is not just light, it's truth. That truth will guide you now. Not upward, not outward, but inward. And from that place, you'll walk this world not just as a seeker, but as a living reminder that the dark is not the opposite of light, it is the womb from which light is born.